I would like to welcome to this presentation. My name is Roman Galvujak. I'm the head analyst at Piano Media. I will be talking about what I'm working on in Piano, so analyzing paid content, all the opportunities and risks that it holds. And I would like to tell you a bit about our experience in this area so far. The structure of the webinar will begin with a very short introduction of why publishers actually should or do care about paid content. Then the second part would talk about the decisions you need to take before implementing paid content on your site, and how to think about your content before monetizing it. And then we'll talk about what to do after the launch, so optimizing the running paywall. So a quick overview of the situation. We all know this, and it's happening all over the world, to the big players as well as to the small. But the print is on a decline. I don't think I need to add anything more to that. That comes hand in hand with the decrease in advertising revenues from print, but more importantly, also the digital revenues from advertising have decreased, since the price for advertising has decreased in favor of the big players like Google or Facebook. So enough on the intro. Now, when you think about paid content, you first think about money. So you currently probably have some revenues from advertising, and ideally you would want the revenues after you implement paid content to be higher than before, which is common sense. You don't need an analyst to tell you that. There will obviously be some kind of a decrease in page views, but you would want to increase in revenues from subscriptions to more than make up for that. So what are the most common questions that we get asked when we are talking to publishers about paid content? So it's about how much money you can make, what's the impact on traffic, how to charge for the content, how to package it, and what to do after you launch. And I'll try to answer some of these questions in the following slides. So we'll start from a very simple formula. Your revenues will consist from the number of people paying and of how much they pay. So it's not rocket science. I think all of you could have come up with this. I'm not here to introduce this as some kind of a miracle discovery. But you want to talk about the number of people paying, we can look a bit closer into that. So what's the size of your audience? In your reporting tool, perhaps Google Analytics, perhaps Site Catalyst Omniture, you have a number of unique visitors. Now, the first step you need to take is to account the overestimation that these tools include because of using cookies, because of being more focused on e-commerce, which is actually a case of Google Analytics, even though that has been changing since the beginning of the year. And this overestimation can be as high as 30 to 50%. So that's the first, shrinking of your real audience for monetizing. Then the second one is maybe a bit more shocking for some, is that 20 to 50% of visitors to some sites don't read any articles within a monthly time period. So we have seen this happening over and over in many titles, and yes, 50% is actually not that uncommon, so it's not kind of an outlier. It happens all across the world. So following on that, now we have reduced our audience quite a bit, and if you think about it in these terms, roughly 5 to 10% of the users who read content actually encounter the paywalls, so they read enough to hit the paywall. And finally, the conversion rate from all the users that visit your site might range between 0.03 and 2.5%, with 2.5% being the highest rate achieved by New York Times, which again might be a bit higher at this point. So looking at the whole funnel, all the percentages are from the total number of unique visitors you see in your reporting tools that I have already mentioned. And there are many factors that come into play, so identifying browsers or cookies, people who don't read any content, they just browse home pages or section fronts. And again, everything is also based on the number of people who hit the paywall. So always keep in mind that the audience you are targeting is actually much smaller than the total number of unique users you see. Continuing on that, we have looked at what it means to have a number of people paying. What does it mean to charge for the service? Now, pricing is a very tricky issue, and we have done some surveys, and you can always ask people what they are willing to pay, and sometimes it differs a lot from what they actually will pay. And you base the price not only on the feedback from the users, because sometimes not all publishers can make a survey, but you also have to take into account what's the value of your print versus digital. So are there some articles that are print only? Are there some articles that are digital only? And if yes, does it make a difference that you should account into the price? Then there are industry and market benchmarks. So if you are working with us, we have a lot of benchmarks, but for example, if you are in a country where paid content has also been launched by one or more of your competitors, you know where you stand compared to your competitors and how much you can afford to charge, or at least it gives you some idea of a boundary. And of course, also your online strategy. So how much do you really want to protect print? Because frankly, you want to go into paid content and your goal is to protect print, maybe you should rethink a bit. Again, aside of pricing, the very important question is packaging. So this might sound very trivial, but opt-out trial offers, so let's say a monthly subscription for a very, very low price. We have done it for 1 cent or €1 or $1 in different countries. It's very successful, and the graph shows its thickness. So let's say after 3 months, you can still retain almost 70% of all the people who try the trial offer. This is of course also due to using a recurring card pay options. Then you also have to decide on the length, time duration of your subscriptions. And one word of advice from our experience: do not focus on daily or weekly subscriptions. We have had a weekly on our national systems, but we decided to abolish it. Why? Because we have analyzed how many people buy a monthly after they buy a weekly, or vice versa, how many people buy a weekly after a monthly subscription. What has happened is that the flows were almost the same, so there was no change. And as a publisher, you are looking for a stable revenue stream, and that can be achieved only through people who are willing to pay, and they are willing to pay for a longer time periods or renew their subscriptions. And in our experience, daily and weekly subscriptions just don't create the loyalty that you need for a stable subscriber base. Let's go a bit into the content. So we talk about the people, the prices, and about your content. So if there is one thing that I would like you to take from this presentation, is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. There are different kinds of content. So there is topical, so sports, travel, news, etc. There are also different kinds of content in terms of its form, so articles, slideshow, videos. And the way that you can think about your content in terms of monetization is this simple 2x2 matrix or 2x2 graph. So there are 2 dimensions. One is loyalty, so how often the user visits the site. Then there's traffic or content consumption, so how many people you have and how much do they read. So you have, for example, a section that has a low traffic by high loyalty. It's something more of a niche. So if you hold that with hard paywall, readers are more likely to pay, and the traffic loss is not that high. If you have a section that has great loyalty and great traffic, then you might consider a metered paywall, since that's the cash cow for monetization. There's a section that maybe has a bit low loyalty but high traffic. It's more suited for advertising, and a section with no loyalty and no traffic is something that none of us would want to have on their site. But you can also always think about, where do I want to have this kind of content? I cannot probably change it to high loyalty, high traffic overnight, but maybe I can make it more niche, or maybe I can make it more general with some sensational articles. So it's also a framework of thinking about your content when it isn't monetized. Here is an example of the content and how it will be profiled. So from our experience, opinion sections and niche is like business perform very well, or even culture in some cases. And for example, sections like TV program are obviously not something you would want to monetize. Now, you have maybe decided that you want to meter the paywall, and the question is where to set the paywall. What we have seen over and over again is publishers wanting to do 10 free articles per month, and we get it. 10 articles per month is a nice round number, and New York Times also has 10 articles per month, right? So they are the big player, they must have gotten it right. The thing is that New York Times started with 20 articles per month, then lowered it to 15, and then again to 10. So there have been some analysis. And really what you see here is a graph of content consumption. The x-axis shows the reading engagement. So people read more than one, more than two, more than three articles per month, and the percentage corresponding to that number of people. So as you can see, the content consumption here varies a lot, but all of these are for daily general newspapers with roughly 2 million or 2.5 million uniques per month. So you would say they are similar in size, similar in their target audience. Still huge differences even between the two German papers. So of course, coming from the metered paywall, usually people are very concerned about traffic. So what we have to think about is what you probably saw when we were talking about the funnel, the conversion funnel. Most people will never hit the paywall. Then you are keeping the homepage and section fronts free to keep the traffic, since for lots of titles, homepage is the page with the highest priced advertising. And again, if you have, for example, galleries that users have to click through, they can be metered as one article, or you don't even have to meter the photo galleries, because usually there are such a system of clicking through a photo gallery, generating multiple page views is used to increase the page view count, even though not very successful probably. Alright, so continuing on the ad revenues. So usually there is no display advertising in implementing paid content. There are maybe some losses to the third-party revenues, but they are not that significant. Usually the range of page view loss is between 8 to 25% on a monthly basis. Right, so now we have talked about analyzing the content before implementing a paid content strategy. So as I said, there is no one-size-fits-all strategy. A site is not homogeneous, so you have different kinds of sections that might perform differently. So that is something that you can do even if you don't have an extensive database of benchmarks for different publishers. You can benchmark your content against itself. You also should define your subscription packages with the customer lifecycle in mind. So you would want ideally the subscribers to convert to a higher subscription duration, to the more expensive subscriptions. So keep that in mind. And yeah, there is a lot to think about before you launch, but after the launch is where the work begins. So the first thing in conversion optimization is the price. We have talked a bit about the price. There is some things to think about for the meter setting. There is always the conversion funnel, so the e-commerce part of the paywall, and also there is the retention. So fine-tuning your prices can be done with a very precise and scientific methods of A/B testing. So you can A/B test different pricing levels, and while some publishers might be afraid of fallout, it's possible to wrap it up in a way where the users don't even notice that they are being A/B tested on. So that's something that we always recommend. A/B test your pricing, and sometimes having, let's say, 50 fewer subscribers but getting $2 or euros more per subscription can result in a significant revenue increase. Now, optimizing the meter. We have talked a bit about the meter setting in terms of number of free articles. There are other dimensions. What you can see here is the time dimensions. So the percentage of cumulative page views over the month, and the number of cumulative page views where the paywall was hit. So obviously more and more people will have hit the paywall as the month progresses, but ideally you would want at least 50% of your users to hit the paywall within the first 2 weeks, because the time when the user hits the paywall impacts the conversion probability. So people who hit the paywall in the first week of the month are more avid readers, they are more prone to convert. So keep this in mind. Now again, the conversion funnel, there are many ways, and I think there are countless books on marketing practices in terms of e-commerce that you can put to use here. Some examples are, for example, look at where are the leaks in your funnel. So if you have maybe too many pages, in Slovakia we used to have a two-part payment window. One was something like an introductory information window. The second one was the info with the payment, where you could select the subscription, you could select would input your email. So we removed the information window, which effectively tripled the conversion. Or another thing, the marketing best practice is highlighting an option, so saying that it's most popular or the most cost efficient. And while this may seem like a very small improvement and it's common sense, we have A/B tested it just to make sure. And just by doing this, you increase the conversion, let's say, by 0.1%. And this is not only for the subscription that is highlighted, but also for all other subscription options. Now, retention modeling. This is a very interesting analysis that I did very recently. And we have been creating a predictive model to see whether we can predict whether a user renews their subscription or not based on their behavior. And what was very interesting is that the model had 80% precision. So we were able to predict people renewing or not renewing with 80% accuracy. And what was interesting also was the predictors that we use. So of course the biggest predictor is the recurrent payment type, but also we saw the package structure and its influence on retention, which told us a bit, about which packages are more suitable for entry, which packages are more suitable for after some renewals. What was also interesting was there was a content dimension. So for example, people reading the opinion or commentary sections were more prone to renew. So this is something again that we could use. So we can now promote the content in these sections to people who are close to having their subscription expired. So how to get started? This may be a bit of a sales pitch, and I'm not a salesperson, so please bear with me. But I have shown you some of the things that we have learned. Of course, there are many more things, but that we couldn't fit into this presentation. So if you want to learn with us, we offer content monetization analysis, so don't hesitate to contact us. But as I said, lots of the things that I have shown you can do yourself if you have good data sources. And we are Piano Media, if you have forgotten since subscribing to the presentation. And maybe some interesting news recently were that we actually merged with our biggest competitor, Press Plus. So for me as an analyst, it means a wealth of data and more in-depth knowledge. So that might bring us, something interesting for the next presentation. These are some. In the presentation, you might see some referrals from our partners that have something to say. I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask. If some questions or comments come to you later, do not hesitate to contact us. We will gladly continue the conversation. So again, thanks for attending and see you in our next webinar.